Anche Jimborto da Nimiso, non è molto importante, anche da non tanto sciamato, tombate di Janla
To liberate sentient beings, please generate the Supreme Bodhicitta before we start today's teaching. Now let us begin our teaching on the Vimalakirti Sutra. First, let us recite the transmission.
Tirtang la principe mevshut revision tsatam tirtang tsatam tang tsatam charlam somber shem nyamba nyala jikshan tukyang namka vision semchim komchong de la sijing chudmer get taba chembon kornum dipan dotogna kyochi jarta rapta tape yikirta tamchit jijang tamchit jijang jara rangam danna nim tong dana jara manje sanjim chanlak so Jondan ki song chigrap to shonwa yang kornam ki no song la tat number rig droa ta rang ton jin nam rig pa ten jari manje sanjim chanlak so song chigrap to jopam zapa te yin kachig wakchig gu jang kachig tokbar shi somnyin sarwan dembe rap to jim zate ten jari manje sanjim chanlak so topchin dembe sarnga kyollab shamsar lo jigba mamnga jigtr kyollab shamsar lo manje pa yi churnam nge per tokba rap tokba droa tamchin demba kyollab shamsar lo kundu jore changbe kyollab shamsar lo parol chener kamla jiglab shamsar lo topin droa kyollab shamsar lo korun droa magne palab shamsar lo semchin namdang droa jigshang kundrok kyang droa tamchin lenar number jorba thig Babma tagna chirki cheyi ku yongmo ku tobi babmer tongba niki ngibaro gom Tsama tamchir namba kunda rapto sara kyo na chila gang mombram zapa yongmam nga sangye takam tachin samji mechivte namkar tawar magne pala toksham sara Teni jondan de la lutzamba jonno komchum jonne ki tsiksip chapa te takam mombra tone jondan de la ndirkichi sordo jondan de lutzamba jonnar ngabya bodan datak tamchit yang lanami pa yang dog zogbo shanchip de yang dog ji te datak yang shanchip zanwa namji sanji ji jang yong sa takba kang la ji sanji ji jang yong sa takba jana jondan de te jang shebe shanchip zanwa te tak la sanji ji jang yong sa takba lagbar shato sur terkitji sura tang Jondan deji lutzambag jon hukum jomjone la lagso jibsha jenne lagso jon kyoto sanji ji jang yang sa tagler samte dejang shaba dun jwa lagso ti shirto jonne ki lagbar nyon la yilla zonshi tang shanzu sanwa nam sanji ji jang yang sa tagba ler samte ngi kyola bsha to Jondan de lagso sorne jon Jona Luzambag Jona Kumchum Jone, Luzambag Jona Ngabjabo, Deda Tamchip, Jumdun de Gistar, Nyambadan, Jumdun de Gite, the La, Nderkitchi, Gapsato, Rigiva, Semjin Gijan, Shantu Sanhui, Sanji Gijan, O, Jifir Jena, Shantu Sanhua, Chu Zam the Sanji Nam Gibrship, Te Zam the Sanji Gijan Zondo, Semchin and Chister and the Verkira, Te Stavi Sanji Gijan Zondo, Sanji Gijan La, Jigba Chirtava. Semchin nam sanji ji ishi lan jigbaran jerwa ter tabi sanji ji jang yong sun zondo sanji ji jang lan jigba chirtawa semchin nam pagba tabi wangbo jewaran jerwa ter tabi sanji ji jang yong sun zondo te chi shir jina rigiba shanchu sanhua nam ji sanji ji jang la semchin ji tonde shungwa shiro kumchum jone ndartate huayna namka chirtawa sharan doba devjin de shid mokye namka lan shir marung jang gyandagang marungwa devjin de kumchum jone chutamche namka dam sombra shine shanchu sanhua semchin yongsir membra shawi shirde sanji ji Jang Chirtawar Sharan Dopa Te Tava Sanji Jang Shid Mokyo Sanji Jang Namkar Shar Murungwa Murung Jang Gyandagang Murung O
And we are back again. What is everyone laughing at? Is someone laughing over there? Have some tea and share a little laugh. No more laughing now.
Yeah.
You do not laugh when you should, yet you laugh when it is inappropriate. Well, laughing a little is actually quite good. It is good to be a little cheerful. There is no need to be especially sorrowful. Although samsara is full of suffering, there is no need to be sorrowful every single day. Let us continue with the Vimalakirti Sutra. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, we are currently discussing the verses of praise to the Buddha. I believe all of you gathered here have the merit to hear and receive the Dharma. I am also genuinely happy from the bottom of my heart that in this remaining lifetime, this impure body has not yet been overtaken by illness, and it has not been constrained by various other circumstances. In Buddhism, we speak of the 8 conditions of non-leisure. In the Wish-Fulfilling Treasure by Venerable Longchenpa, 16 conditions of non-leisure are described. These refer to various reasons why one cannot hear the Dharma or practice. Such obstacles can truly arise very easily in this human world. Some are due to one's own incapable mind, while others are due to outer circumstances that ultimately prevent one from studying the Dharma. There are many such situations. So we hope that everyone will do their best to create opportunities when such a chance arises. You should create such conditions for others as well as for yourself. The opportunity for all of us to study together like this is actually, whether looked at from one's own perspective or from outer circumstances, quite rare, uncommon, and difficult to come by. So each and every one of our Dharma friends, including those within our own institute and monastery as well as those in the external associations, should strive to create such conditions for both self and others, in particular for those in charge and our administrative staff. Recently, in the course of my interactions with people from many departments, I have noticed that sometimes many matters get passed around like a ball being kicked back and forth, or certain necessary matters are handled with excessive strictness. This creates quite significant difficulties. Although we do need to maintain certain principles and rules, and every department has them, please do not be excessively strict in certain situations. Within the Larungar as well, I hope the Dharma teachers all possess a certain degree of authority. Outside of the Larungar, for those in various departments, including directors and group leaders, when it comes to study and management, if a positive matter does not conflict significantly with our broader principles, everyone should try to facilitate good conditions in various ways. There are many matters to consider in this regard, especially at the beginning of the year. As everyone knows, there are many tasks. I hope everyone can still discuss things well together. That is one matter. There is also another matter. In the course of our studies, I also spoke with our internal Dharma teacher some time ago. I hope not to place too much pressure on everyone. Although there may sometimes be pressure in our studies, the schedule should be adjusted to be more reasonable. Otherwise, for our volunteers, there are still many things that need to be done. If every department pushes too hard, it creates certain difficulties. I would also like to thank many of our departments here. After I spoke the other day, many issues regarding meals have already been resolved. On this point in front of the whole world, I must praise these particular actions of yours, because I have met many Dharma friends who told me that they finally have a place of support now. By the same principle, the situation with our living quarters is the same. In the future, if our various departments are able to resolve matters beyond their own department, such as certain difficulties or needs in various areas, we should not act like certain countries in the world that are especially harsh toward outsiders. If we do not even allow people to stay for one day, especially given the situation we have faced here in recent years regarding many houses and living quarters, the circumstances are something everyone is very well aware of. So everyone should make accommodations for each other in various ways. If you can help even one person solve their housing problem, I myself feel the same way. For example, if someone offers me a room as a gift, in that case I immediately, no matter what, allow them to continue staying there for a period of time. I have not sold it to them. But if they insist on handling it their own way, there is nothing more I can say. Beyond that, even if it is just for one Dharma friend resolving their housing situation for even a single day, I find that very meaningful. I say this because when I first arrived at the Larungar, I endured a great deal of hardship. I faced difficulties in various ways. At that time, I had nothing to eat and nothing to wear. Many people looked down on me and many people criticized me. They asked why I did not go to work and instead ran off to this place, and they said all sorts of things. For many of us, practicing Buddhism is truly not an easy path. At times like this, if everyone can offer some support in various ways, it would be wonderful. This is what I wanted to briefly mention to you today. I hope that in all areas, wherever something positive is happening, everyone will help to the best of their ability. Now let us continue with our teaching. Immovable before abuse and praise like Mount Sumeru, you are equally compassionate to those who are good or not. Your mental processes are universally same like space. Who could hear of the jewel among humans without becoming devoted to you? We are now in the section containing the verses of praise to the Buddha. Yesterday we praised the qualities of the Buddha from several different angles. Today we discuss how the Buddha is unmoved by the 8 worldly winds. The focus here is primarily on praise and blame. The text here uses the term praise and blame. In the Tang Dynasty translation, it says, unmoved by the 8 worldly phenomena. Whether we speak of the 8 worldly concerns or not, the Buddha does not waver when facing any form of praise or blame. He is like the king of mountains. We ordinary people are not like this. If the slightest thing appears online, we react. However, it seems I have now trained myself to a certain degree when people say things about me. I actually feel a bit happy. Not only am I not angry, one day some people came and told me, a certain person said such and such about you. I told them that it was great and that I was very grateful to that person. For example, if someone makes an offering to me, I might not feel as grateful as I do in that moment. Conversely, when someone criticizes me, not only do I harbor no ill will, but I also do not feel completely cut off from them. Perhaps a person can truly progress. In situations like this, one can train oneself to a certain extent. Of course, we are still far from the level of the Buddha. As for the Buddha, neither praise nor blame can move him. He is like the king of mountains. In the past, 500 Brahmins criticized the Buddha at first, recounting various perceived faults. Later, they developed faith in him because the Buddha was not moved in the slightest. Then they praised him in many different languages, but still he remained unmoved. There are many such stories. Truly, the Buddha is beyond all wavering, toward the virtuous and the non-virtuous and toward pure morality. Some translations say he is equal in compassion toward those with and without precepts. Other translations express it this way as well. There are those who observe precepts and those who break them. One might expect that within the Buddha's teachings, the Buddha would favor those who keep their precepts and be displeased with those who break them. But in reality, it is not like that at all. According to the translation here, what is being said is, toward those who are especially kind-hearted and good people, and toward those who are especially evil and commit the 10 non-virtuous actions, the Buddha protects and supports all of them with total equality. He helps them and brings benefit to them. The Buddha's mind, whether in meditative absorption or at any other time, abides completely in a state of perfect equanimity. He remains within a state as vast as empty space. He has attained an extremely expansive and open mindset. So such a Buddha who is unmoved by praise or blame, treating both the virtuous and the non-virtuous equally, is a wise one whose very nature is like empty space. For those of us who possess wisdom, who among us, upon hearing of such a jewel among humans, this wish-fulfilling jewel and venerable Buddha, would not revere and serve him? One who remains completely equal in the face of praise and blame is worthy of praise even by the standards of our human world. The Dharmapada Sutra says, like a stable mountain that is not moved by the wind, the stable mountain refers to Mount Sumeru. Just as Mount Sumeru cannot be shaken by the wind, the wise one is the same, not moved by praise or blame. The wise one refers to a person of wisdom. In other words, it refers to a person of great sagacity. A wise Buddha or Bodhisattva will not be moved by criticism or praise. There are many such teachings. The Buddhist scriptures teach principles very similar to what is said here. In other scriptures of the Buddha, this is also found, including in the Bodhisattva Sutra. Devadatta hurled stones in anger. Rahula stood compassionately before him. Devadatta refers to the person Devadatta, who angrily rolled rocks toward the Buddha, and Rahula stood compassionately before him, both viewed with compassionate eyes, like seeing poison and sandalwood as equal. The Buddha regards everyone with total impartiality. He treats all beings equally with his eyes of compassion. Whether he sees a poisonous tree or sandalwood, he regards them as completely equal. In truth, many of us may wish to be like this. However, some people feel nothing regardless of whether they are praised or blamed, whether someone makes offerings to them or does anything else to them. They have not the slightest feeling. Such people also exist in the world, but in reality, being such a person is not a good thing. It is like what the treatise on the modes of being describes as a shameless person. A shameless person acts as if they have no conscience. No matter how well others treat them, they feel nothing at all. And even when others are especially dissatisfied with them, they still feel nothing. That is a very rogue and shameless kind of person. The Buddha's realization is not like this. The state the Buddha realized is absolutely not the same as being indifferent. So what we need to understand here is the following principle. We must understand that the Buddha has fully realized a state of perfect equanimity. In our current teaching of the Vimalakirti Sutra, we are comparing the text with several different versions, especially by cross-referencing the Tibetan. It will benefit you in the future. Whether you use it for your own practice or for scholarly research on the Vimalakirti Sutra, it will provide a very helpful resource for you. Some of us here may want to focus on practice, aiming to fully master the meaning of both the verses and the commentaries of this sutra. And for some others, they may later want to study certain famous scriptures of Tibetan Buddhism. This Vimalakirti Sutra is incredibly famous on a global scale. There is a vast amount of scholarly literature throughout the world studying it. As you know, in the course of such research concerning the materials that currently exist in the world today, we are essentially comparing various translations for our study. We do not need to feel rushed to finish this teaching quickly. It is not about finishing one and then hurrying to the next. It is not about just adding to a total count of sutras taught. Sometimes the content may be a bit difficult to grasp, but I will try to explain it as clearly as I can. I will speak less of worldly stories and focus mainly on the Buddhist content itself. I intend to expound more on the original meaning of the Mahayana scriptures. It is ideal to have the Tibetan text for comparison. You also have the English version available here, as well as our Chinese text. That makes 3 different versions. With these resources, you should study very seriously. I have noticed among our Dharma friends here that the review sessions after the teachings are quite diligent. They are very diligent at the beginning, but I wonder if they will remain this diligent until the final day. I believe that as long as there is an exam, they will certainly be diligent, except for a very few who simply do not care about the results. Exams serve as a kind of invisible motivation, so I also hope that the Dharma teachers, Khenpos and Khenmos, although I do not require all of you to attend in person, will encourage everyone to study carefully and thoroughly. Separately arranging courses and tutoring sessions does present certain practical challenges. However, the participants in our research classes basically all do this. Having listened to the recording several times in the evening, they have generally performed their review very well. As for our other Dharma friends, if you immediately close your book and set it aside after class and only look at it again the following week, that is a particularly irresponsible attitude toward learning. Listening just once is not enough. I've never approached learning in such a way. Whenever I receive any teaching from a teacher, I would read through the text at least several times. If there is a commentary, I would at least browse through it. Otherwise, if you only listen once, no matter how sharp your faculties may be, even if you are a person of great wisdom, you will not necessarily understand the profound meaning. If we are going to study at all, we should at least set aside a specific amount of time to review the day's teaching on your own. This process is very important. Now, what shall we discuss next? We will discuss the Buddha's miraculous transformations and his state of being. Earlier, Bodhisattva jewel accumulation made an offering to the world-honored one. From a worldly view, it was just a jeweled canopy made of 7 precious substances. It might seem like a rather insignificant offering, but in reality, the result manifested from that offering is that within it, the entire great Trikilayocosm is displayed. What did this offering bring forth? It brought forth vast transcendent merits. As we discussed previously, the key principle of dependent origination and emptiness is this: a small cause can produce a greatly magnified result. Today, through making this modest offering of a canopy to the world-honored one, the entire great Trikilayocosm is manifested within it. Within this great Trikilayocosm, everything is shown: the Brahma kings, Indra, and other celestial beings, as well as the Naga kings. All the palaces they inhabit are displayed, as well as Gandharvas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and Asuras, humans, non-humans, and all such sentient beings. All the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the mundane and supra-mundane realms appear. Through the Buddha's 10 powers, with compassion, these miraculous transformations are manifested. This refers to the unique 10 powers of the Buddha and his great compassion. Compassion here means having pity for all sentient beings. The power of this pity for beings caused these transformations to manifest. All of what was just described is being manifested. This can truly be described as an utterly inconceivable state of being. At that time, the Buddha relied on his spiritual power to manifest many things that are indeed beyond comprehension. On the surface, it appeared as though Bodhisattva jewel accumulation and the others offered 500 jeweled canopies, but those 500 canopies instantly transformed into an extraordinarily vast one within which all the worlds were displayed. And most importantly, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas throughout those worlds were also revealed. This is a truly inconceivable power. Of course, when the Buddha was present in the world, one could say the world was undergoing a transformation. The forces of virtue were significantly greater. In our current era, other kinds of manifestations, I feel, are quite similar to what is described here. When we hear of things we have not personally seen, we find them somewhat hard to conceive. We wonder if such things could really happen. But in reality, under the power of today's high technology, what is manifested is also inconceivable. Before, we could never have imagined, for instance, someone in America video chatting with someone here. That would have been utterly inconceivable and impossible. In the past, sending a letter would take months or many days before the other party could receive it. Making a phone call was extremely difficult, whether by landline or wireless phone. But now, all of these are nothing remarkable. And there are other advanced technologies with many different claims being made. Those of you in big cities are probably even more aware. One moment they talk about preparing to go to Mars and making plans in that direction. The next moment they talk about our entire world with supersonic transportation and Airbuses. Last year or the year before, it was said that traveling from Canada to China would take close to 2 hours by plane. Such plans are also being pushed forward. Now there are underwater buses and trains and many other things. These were very difficult for us to imagine before. Regardless of anything else, the power of these illusory manifestations is truly inconceivable. What we personally witness in the human world, if we were asked to explain it, except for the inventors and creators themselves, we cannot explain these transformations. Yet we are still within this world of illusion. And we are also enjoying this world of illusory manifestations. So I think at that time when the Buddha and Bodhisattvas were present in the world was in a very excellent and wondrous era. There were many extraordinary things. In our current era, however, conversely, the negative side has somewhat increased, whether in terms of killing humans or animals. Much technology is now quite easy to access in this world. There are also many threats across the entire world. Everyone feels that if one person's intentions are malicious, they could perhaps make a phone call, or with a few seconds or minutes of operation, it could bring immense suffering to all of humanity. This is something that can be seen. But all of these can also be manifested through illusory power. If we have compassion with 10 powers and compassion like the Buddha, through this compassion, countless beings can attain liberation. Such a thing is also possible to accomplish. If we have violent and aggressive states of mind, that too could bring terror to this world, bring insecurity, various kinds of panic, and various factors that disturb peace of mind, not only for a nation or the world, but also for individual families and individual bodies. Similar situations exist. So this is what we are discussing, the manifestation through illusory transformation. We may not have finished reading earlier. It means what was transformed through the Buddha's 10 powers, the phenomena of the entire trichiliocosm, all the humans and non-humans present, celestial beings and humans alike, all of them saw it with their own eyes. Having witnessed it with their own eyes, everyone found it exceedingly rare and praised it without end. They offered praise to the Buddha, and so Bodhisattva jewel accumulation said, I bow my head to the world-honored one of the 3 realms. I wish to bow reverently before our teacher Sakyamuni Buddha, the teacher of the 3 realms, with clasped hands and deepest prostration. What follows this does not seem to appear in Jichen's translation. The verses above are present. Different versions are different. Looking at the Tibetan, it is fairly complete. Other translations, both the Tang version and Kumarajiva's, include what follows. The text then says the Buddha is a great sage. He is not the great sage from the novel Journey to the West. As a great sage and a great king of Dharma, you are the refuge for all sentient beings. The following passage mainly describes the magnificence of the Buddha's physical form. For whoever beholds the Buddha with a pure mind, there is not a single person who is not joyful. This is true whether in that time or in the present. If we contemplate the magnificent form of the Buddha with a pure mind, all will experience a profound sense of joy. Furthermore, each of these sentient beings is personally able to see the Buddha appearing directly before them. What is the reason for this phenomenon? This is the unique power exclusive to the Buddha. Bodhisattvas, Sravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas do not have this ability. If every sentient being practices contemplation, prayers, and sincere aspirations, then in reality, a Buddha dwells before every single one of them. Such a manifestation is indeed possible. This was the praise offered by Bodhisattva jewel accumulation at that time. As for later times, although the Buddha displayed the appearance of passing into parinirvana, the Buddha's blessings and emanation bodies can always and continuously manifest before all sentient beings.
The
Samadhiraja Sutra states, for the Buddha adorned with wondrous marks, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, whoever contemplates that Buddha, the Buddha will always abide before them. It seems this verse was also used in the ritual of the Buddha Shakyamuni. However, that translation and the one I used a few days ago are slightly different from each other. That version begins with whether walking or standing. It suggests that regardless of who the person is, like the radiant full moon, for the Buddha's magnificent form, whoever brings it to mind or whoever recollects it, the Buddha is right there before them. This is truly the case. As a follower of the Buddha, this is why I often emphasize that everyone should regularly pray to the Buddha. The reason we do this in our classes is that previously the Larung daily chant did not include the Treasury of Blessings, a practice of Buddha Shakyamuni at the start. Starting from the year 2002, we added it to the beginning of our sessions. My purpose was for every Buddhist to maintain a sense of gratitude toward the world-honored one. The world-honored one is right before whoever has faith in him. In the secular world, there is also a common saying, 1,000 rivers have water, and 1,000 rivers reflect the moon, 10,000 miles without a cloud, and 10,000 miles of sky. Within 1,000 rivers, whether they are great rivers or small streams, as long as the moon is in the sky above, the reflection of the moon will appear in each river. By the same principle, no matter how many water vessels we have on the ground, the reflection of the moon in the sky will appear within them. However, if there is a cloud over the vessel, the reflection will not appear. In 10,000 miles of sky, the reflection cannot appear if there is the obstruction of clouds. Once the clouds are gone, the reflection appears. That verse was apparently written by a Chan master during the Song dynasty. Its original meaning is that every sentient being possesses the Tathagata Garbha. This Tathagata Garbha can manifest itself. The Buddha nature can come forth just like the reflection of the moon. Within our own mind stream, the clouds and mist upon the Tathagata Garbha that is like open space. Anyone can dispel them. Once the obstructing clouds and mist are removed, the essence of the Tathagata Garbha can manifest. I seem to recall that such an interpretation exists, but regardless of how we interpret it, what I want to say to everyone today is that the Buddha will manifest before various sentient beings. For those with pure faith and for those who feel joy toward the Buddha, even if we only see a truly magnificent statue of the Buddha. Do we have any magnificent Buddha statues here? Is there perhaps a smaller one available? I was actually thinking of bringing a Buddha statue to show everyone today. Is there one inside that room? If there is, please bring it out. Please do not bring one that is too large, as I will not be able to carry it. Having a magnificent Buddha statue is genuinely very important. If there isn't one, that is perfectly fine. In any case, it seems difficult for you to find a key right now. That one is too small. This one will do. One should always maintain a mind of reverence toward Buddha statues. When you go out, for those among you who travel for work, you should bring a small statue with you. Small Buddha statues are actually not expensive nowadays. When we were young, we would often place stones and treat them as Buddha statues. Later, I came across the Lotus Sutra. I realized that even as a small child, I still had wholesome roots. It is wonderful. Now, as Buddhists, we should at least have a statue of Shakyamuni Buddha. You should regularly contemplate it and let your mind rest upon it. Guru Rinpoche also said this. He said, I neither come nor go. Whoever has faith in me, I dwell right before them. This is truly the case. He is constantly granting empowerments, blessings, and teachings. So when we regularly pray to our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha with a very focused mind and pray to him with very deep reverence, the Buddha is truly present. We can personally experience this as well. On a day when I pray to my own root teacher with especially strong faith, I can feel the teacher's blessings reaching me. When I pray to Guru Rinpoche with very strong faith, the sense of Guru Rinpoche's blessings, I myself can fully receive it. This is related on one hand to one's own faith and on the other hand to the power of the Buddha's vows and also to the inconceivable interdependence of causes and conditions. When all of these are in place, one's practice will proceed very smoothly. Otherwise, if we treat Buddhism entirely as a subject of intellectual study, perhaps without faith or the most fundamental principles at the core, there are certain principles within Buddhism that without faith one truly cannot obtain their genuine meaning. But if one has faith, one may receive even more than through intellectual research alone. This is something worth reflecting on. This is the unique power and might of the Buddha. When the Buddha teaches the Dharma with a single voice, sentient beings, according to their own different categories, can all understand its meaning. Every sentient being believes that the world-honored one is teaching them in their own language. And what is the reason for this? It is caused by the unique power and might of the Buddha. If we hold an international conference now, there are different interpreters, such as English interpreters, French, German, and Spanish interpreters, Hindi, Tibetan, and Mongolian, Uyghur, and Yi, providing simultaneous interpretation in various different languages, or perhaps many translators are needed. But for the Buddha, at such a vast assembly at that time, when he taught the Dharma in Sanskrit, every sentient being could actually hear it in their own language. For instance, Tibetans and Han Chinese, Mongolians, Indians, and Nepalis, different people who went there all believed that the Buddha was teaching them in their own tongue. What is the reason for this? In fact, each of our languages and the wisdom that can penetrate language within the emptiness of the Dharma dhatu, or in the non-dual luminous emptiness, the ground, they all exist. If they did not exist, why would we be able to learn and understand a language? It would be impossible. Each one of us possesses these conditions, but regarding these conditions, we have not yet fully synthesized and mastered them. They are not yet integrated into one. The Buddha has fully understood the totality of all these, the deepest principle of the inseparability of appearance and emptiness. When he understands this, all the different language skills of the conventional world are also mastered by him. For this reason, the Buddha proclaims the Dharma in all different kinds of language. And every sentient being has received the corresponding benefit. The main point of this verse is that the Dharma taught by the Buddha is received by every sentient being through their own sounds and their own language, enabling them to grasp the meaning of what the Buddha has taught. The next verse says, "The Buddha also teaches the Dharma with a single voice, but these sentient beings, each according to their own capacity, their own disposition, and their own different spiritual lineages, are all able to understand, and all of them receive it. They receive it universally. All of them obtain very great benefit. For instance, for those who enjoy hearing about the precepts, they receive wisdom regarding the precepts. For those who prefer receiving teachings on generosity, they receive wisdom regarding generosity." So the Buddha manifests in various ways before different sentient beings. One could put it this way. In some commentaries it says, when the Buddha manifests before sentient beings, there is a comprehensive manifestation occupying a single role, and yet each individual receives different benefits. For example, take the Buddha statue here today. Perhaps humans and celestial beings, each person sees a golden Buddha statue and receives benefit. And for another group, humans see a human form, celestial beings see a celestial form, and animals see an animal form, each receiving benefit. One kind of benefit comes through sound, and another kind comes through the Buddha's physical form. This is how the Buddha's teaching brings benefit to each being, eliminating suffering and allowing them to obtain genuine benefit. The following speaks of how, when the Buddha teaches the Dharma through a single voice, some beings lose all fear of samsara. When the suffering of samsara is discussed, they immediately feel a sense of fear in their hearts. Sometimes it is actually very important to feel a sense of fear. Otherwise, for some people, it is like teaching a stone. There is no joy, no suffering, and no fear. They just muddle along every day in the ranks of those listening to the Dharma without the slightest change in their mental state. That is not very good. After listening to a class when fear is spoken of, one should truly feel a chill. One should think, I really must practice diligently. Otherwise, if I am reborn into such a frightening state, what will I do? Sometimes when we hear about the qualities of the higher realms or the qualities of liberation, one should feel joy. One might think, I am truly so fortunate and so happy to have encountered the Dharma and the path of liberation. One should have a genuine sense of joy. For those who are especially and deeply attached to the cycle of birth and death, when the faults of samsara are taught, they should give rise to renunciation. They should resolve, I will no longer be attached. Starting now, I must definitely generate renunciation. And for some others, those who are uncertain about the principles of the mundane and supramundane, and those who harbor various doubts upon hearing the Buddha's teaching, they are able to immediately cut through all doubts. Of course, similar effects can occur when ordinary beings, bodhisattvas or arhats, give teachings, but truly enabling all sentient beings to receive this unique capacity, only the Buddha possesses this power. The unique power and might of the Buddha are among his exclusive qualities. I have spoken about this with you before. When His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche used to give teachings, such as when teaching the extensive biography of the lives of Buddha Shakyamuni, a very great faith in the Buddha would arise in us. When the sufferings of samsara in the letter to a friend were taught, one would feel especially afraid, as though, especially when teaching the precepts. When we first arrived in the winter of 1985, the precepts of Gunaprabha were taught. At that time, it felt as if everything was a precept violation, and one was especially afraid. It was as if one did not even dare to walk. Sometimes when renunciation and bodhicitta were taught, truly many people in the audience would have this experience. His power of transmission was extremely strong. When I gave a talk to the Dharma teachers the other day, I said that when you give teachings, you should first ask if you can move yourself, then teach others. The situation of the Dharma teachers is similar to mine. If we ourselves have no inner realization and try to force the people below to understand, they may not necessarily be able to. But many of our Dharma teachers truly are, I feel, very good because of their many years of study, contemplation, and practice. The great majority are very good. I also sometimes feel, after giving a teaching for texts like the Ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, the content is rather difficult to understand and maybe somewhat dry, but I think to myself that my delivery is not the worst. This is because when I give a teaching, I watch people's expressions. There are basically no people falling asleep. This suggests that perhaps I, and also if the teaching were especially poor, many people would be constantly checking their watches like this. Maybe they do not dare to do so. In all the exam preparation classes, basically no one is seen checking a watch. In that case, perhaps I do teach slightly better, but I do not dare to say so definitively. There is no comparison with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or with the earlier generations of spiritual teachers. But generally speaking, when receiving teachings, having a sense of engagement and having a genuine felt response is very important. One should be afraid when it is time to be afraid, be joyful when it is time to be joyful, and generate renunciation when the time calls for it. This is very important. It seems the Tibetan text also has a relevant passage. When the Buddha teaches the Dharma, some plant the seeds of habitual tendencies, some attain realization, and some cut through doubts. There seems to be such a verse. The content of this verse differs slightly. This translation here is identical to the Tang Dynasty translation. The Tibetan version differs slightly. In Jiqian's translation, this entire section is missing, so different translations have different features. But we can compare them and we can analyze them. There is no need for us to say which one is right and which is wrong. For some great masters, the Sanskrit source text might have differed. In the case of others, their translation approach was different. So we should deeply respect the unique characteristics of what the earlier great masters have translated. Even if there are occasional errors in characters, if we are not especially confident about it, we should try not to change it. This applies to some of the punctuation marks here as well. Those are also acceptable. There are now probably many versions available online. Regarding the explanations here, some things perhaps I'm not sure how this stands, but we shall see. Do you understand what I'm saying? Perhaps you did not quite catch it. What follows is the section on bowing to the 10 powers. The next part praises the 10 powers, the 4 fearlessnesses, and the 18 unique qualities. The Buddha is praised from these distinct aspects. The Buddha fully possesses the 10 powers, such as knowing what is and is not possible. These 10 kinds of powers are explained in texts like the entering the middle way and the adornment of the middle way. These are the 10 powers mentioned here. This specific translation includes the term great diligence. However, the Tang Dynasty translation does not include great diligence. In the Tibetan version, it says, I bow to the one who possesses the 10 powers. Thus, the word diligence does not seem to be prominent in the Tibetan text. If it is absent, the passage becomes somewhat easier to explain. We should consider why this prostration is being made. One prostrates before the Buddha who possesses the 10 powers, and then to what else do we prostrate? We prostrate to the one who has attained the 4 fearlessnesses. These are the fearlessness of complete enlightenment and the fearlessness of the exhaustion of afflictions, also the fearlessness of declaring the path that removes obstacles, and the fearlessness of declaring the end of suffering. These are the 4 kinds of fearlessness. They can be understood from the perspectives of self-benefit and the benefit of others. The Buddha is the one who has already attained these 4 fearlessnesses. This is why the prostration is being made. And then what else should we prostrate to? We prostrate to the one who abides in the 18 unique qualities. With the purity of body, speech, and mind as the main focus, there are 18 unique qualities. To the one who possesses these 10 powers, 4 fearlessnesses, and 18 unique qualities, the guide who possesses such immense merit. This guide is our teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Therefore, the text says, I bow my head to the great guide of all. This refers to the unique merit of the Buddha. Using a period at the end of this sentence is appropriate. However, I am not entirely sure what your specific translation looks like. The following line is, I bow to the one who severs all bonds and fetters. Sentient beings are plagued by greed, anger, and delusion. They have many bonds which act as obstructions. In the Abhidharmakosha, both bonds and fetters are categorized as obstructions. Greed, anger, and delusion are known as the 3 poisons. As for the 5 hindrances and 10 entanglements, these bonds, the Buddha has severed them all. For example, at the level of the first Bodhisattva ground, as it is explained in the Entering the Middle Way, the 3 bonds, including the view of the transitory collection and doubt, these are severed when one reaches the first Bodhisattva ground. It goes without saying that this is fully achieved at the level of Buddhahood. Therefore, we bow to the one who has severed all bonds and all obstructions. To what else are we bowing? To the one who has already reached the other shore. From the paramita of generosity to the paramita of wisdom, all shores have already been reached. Thus, we bow to the one who has reached the other shore. We bow to the one who liberates all worldly beings. This means not only having attained realization for oneself, but also being able to guide and liberate all the boundless beings throughout the world. And to what else do we bow? To the one who has permanently left behind the path of birth and death in the case of some non-Buddhist attainments. Although they may have temporarily overcome their obstructions, they might eventually regress and fall back. They fall back into the cycle of samsara. But for the Buddha, because he has severed even the most subtle cognitive obscurations, all the obstructions of birth and death as well as the obstructions of samsara, these have been completely and utterly severed. What is the significance of this regarding these following points? We are praising the exclusive qualities of the Buddha in order to pay homage. The next verse then states that the Buddha is able to know the arising and passing of all sentient beings. He is skilled at attaining liberation within all phenomena. There are 2 ways of interpreting this passage. The first interpretation is that the Buddha is fully aware of how sentient beings come and go within samsara. He understands this state of affairs very clearly. Although the Buddha knows these beings within samsara, he himself can enter into samsara. He can dwell within samsara. However, samsara creates no obstruction for him whatsoever. He is highly skilled at attaining liberation within all phenomena. Ordinary sentient beings are not skilled at attaining liberation within phenomena. They are bound and restricted within it. But the Buddha is skilled at attaining liberation within every phenomenon. For this reason, like the lotus that does not cling, he is not attached to the world, just as a lotus is unstained by mud. The Avatamsaka Sutra states, like a lotus that does not cling to water, and like the sun and moon that do not dwell in space. Because of this, he is always skilled at entering into the peace of cessation. This refers to the deepest state of emptiness. Ordinary beings cannot do this because we have not realized emptiness, but the Buddha has fully realized emptiness, and for this reason, he fully penetrates the nature of all phenomena without any obstruction. So Bodhisattva jewel accumulation pays homage. Before the Buddha, who has realized the nature of empty space having no support or basis, he is utterly without support. This is because, like empty space, there is fundamentally no basis for anything at all. Therefore, the Buddha has no obstruction toward any phenomenon. The Heart Sutra says, with no obstruction there is no fear, far removed from all upside-down views and dreams. Because his mind has no obstruction, on account of there being no obstruction, all phenomena present no resistance to him. He has realized the highest state, which is vast and open like empty space. So this passage can also be interpreted in this way. In the Tang Dynasty translation and in the Tibetan version, there are 2 additional lines just before the final line I cited. These appear before the line, I bow to one without support like empty space. One line says, All aspirations are fulfilled. There is nothing left to aspire for. All aspirations have been fulfilled, meaning the aspirations of sentient beings are satisfied. Nothing left to aspire for means he himself has no remaining personal desires. This is because he has already reached the most ultimate state. There is also the line, great power and might are inconceivable. This refers to his great power and might. It is the miraculous power associated with his great might. His great power and might are inconceivable because they are beyond conception. This description is also present in the Tibetan text. It is found in the Tang Dynasty translation as well. Having these lines preceding the conclusion is also appropriate. It is because the Buddha has fully penetrated the true nature of all phenomena. He remains without any obstruction. All the virtuous aspirations of sentient beings have been fulfilled. But once he has reached the other shore, there is nothing left he needs for himself. Yet the Buddha's great power and might continue. Truly, even we ordinary beings find his qualities inconceivable. He abides in a state as vast as empty space, without any support or basis. Therefore, whether it be the author or bodhisattva jewel accumulation, he offers praise to these unique qualities of the Buddha. Some people might ask why we should praise the Buddha. The Buddha is not affected by praise. He does not become happy or unhappy because of it. What then is the use of offering praise? In reality, it is not that the Buddha feels joy upon receiving praise. We do not even need to mention the Buddha. Even in our mundane world, a person possessing even a little wisdom is not especially attached to the praise of others. They are not overjoyed by such words, nor are they especially saddened when others criticize them. It will not be that way for a wise person. However, if we sentient beings praise the various qualities of the Buddha, it is tremendously meaningful for completing our accumulation of merit. This helps those without faith and those who are skeptical to enter the correct path. This process is greatly necessary. Throughout history, there have been many such works. As I mentioned the other day, these are songs of praise to the Buddha. There is the text we studied previously called Praise Surpassing the Celestials. This is one of the finest praises ever written for the Buddha. It seems we have not covered that one yet, have we? I have already translated it. It is the praises on the Excellent Noble One. Perhaps the praises on the Excellent Noble One was not taught in this class. This is a very famous praise of the Buddha's enlightened qualities. It is also very important. There is also Bodhisattva Ashvagosa's Buddhakarita, which consists of 28 chapters. It covers everything from the birth of the Buddha to his final nirvana. It also details the entire process of his relics spreading throughout the world. This praise of the Buddha by Bodhisattva Ashvagosa is extremely famous. There is also the one composed by King Suvikranta. It is called the wish-fulfilling tree with 108 branches. He used a wish-fulfilling tree as a metaphor. This is because the wish-fulfilling tree has 108 branches. In fact, what we often see today, such as the many tankas depicting the life story of Shakyamuni Buddha. Many such tankas were painted based on King Suvikranta's praise text. Many biographical accounts of the teacher exist, especially the extended biographies in the Tibetan tradition. These contain very long accounts of 108 stories of the Buddha. These stories of the Buddha follow the structure of King Suvikranta's wish-fulfilling tree. There is a Chinese translation of this work. It seems to have been translated in the 1990s. It was titled The Wish-Fulfilling Vine Tree, regarding the wish-fulfilling vine tree. Actually, the word vine could be omitted. The word vine is simply a modifier used in our Tibetan language. Poets often use metaphors like vines, moonlight, or smiles. There are many such poetic expressions. The actual meaning is the wish-fulfilling tree. It is said to have 108 branches. It is very important, especially as Buddhists, to praise the Buddha's qualities from the most fundamental level. We should do so truly from the heart. There is also Jetsongkhapa's In Praise of Dependent Origination. That is another praise text dedicated to the Buddha. Mepham Rinpoche also wrote one. He has a work similar to In Praise of Dependent Origination. This particular one has not been translated yet. I originally intended to translate it myself. But later, when I considered everything I wanted to translate, I realized it is not possible in a brief human life. Human life is so very brief. I feel a great sense of urgency now. In a few more years, my eyesight will begin to fail. As people get older, their physical functions decline. Then the mind also slowly becomes more muddled. So I am hurrying to do a bit more while I am not yet completely aged. To translate a single shastra or scripture, it requires a very long time. The ornament of the Mahayana Sutras took 4 years to complete. Our Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism required 5 full years. When it comes to a somewhat larger treatise, one's human lifespan cannot simply wait for all that work to be finished. Therefore, I have already completed the portion that I was meant to complete. There are still a few smaller treatises and some other works remaining. However, translating everything I had once hoped for is just not possible. I remember 10 years ago, Dharma Master Jikan from Xiamen once came to visit my home. He said, "Khenpo, please do not exhaust yourself so much. You can never finish all these translations. Please take some time to rest well now." At that time, I truly did want to rest, but in the following 10 years, I still managed to translate a significant portion. As for what I will do going forward, I will have to see how things develop over time. Within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there truly are, and perhaps I'm just being overly meddlesome here, some particularly excellent treatises and scriptures. A portion of them has already been translated. Regardless of whether people pay attention to them or not, whenever the time comes for me to depart, I will have no regrets. However, another portion of these works will have to remain preserved only in their original written form for now. There is simply no way to translate all of them. The discussion above has covered the verses of praise offered by the elder's son, jewel accumulation. Now let us continue with the text for a little while longer. At this point, after jewel accumulation had finished reciting these verses, he addressed the Buddha with the following words: "World-honored one, these 500 elders' sons have all generated the intention to achieve Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. In other words, they have generated Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi Citta. It is likely that these 500 elders' sons, while Bodhisattva jewel accumulation was reciting these verses and making offerings, had already made their aspiration and generated bodhicitta. What is it that they specifically wish to hear? They wish to hear about the purity and adornment of the Buddha land. Since they have already generated bodhicitta, they should be considered practitioners of the highest caliber. For us, even if we have generated bodhicitta, there is still a distance to cover before we can begin to purify a Buddha field. However, they were ready to establish their own Buddha fields immediately. They wished to obtain their own Buddha lands and cultivate those fields. Therefore, they were very eager to hear how one purifies a Buddha land. They hoped that the Buddha would give this instruction to these bodhisattvas. Because they had all become bodhisattvas, they wished to know the method for practicing a bodhisattva's pure land. They wanted to understand the nature of such a state, and they hoped the Buddha could explain this to everyone. The Buddha then addressed the entire assembly. "Excellent jewel accumulation, you have asked on behalf of these bodhisattvas," referring to the 500 elders' sons I just mentioned. These are the ones we might colloquially call second-generation wealthy or second-generation officials. But nowadays, these terms often carry a negative connotation. Some people do not like to hear those labels. When we encounter some of these privileged second-generation individuals, they might say, "Do not call me that. I am not simply wealthy by birth. I have established my own realm through my own personal ability. I am not defined by my parents' status." So when I used that term yesterday, I only meant it roughly. They are not merely second-generation wealthy in the worldly sense. They are spiritually affluent. The Buddha said, "Excellent, excellent. You have asked on behalf of these advanced practitioners about the conduct of the Tathagata's pure Buddha land. That is a very good question. You have asked exactly what is needed. You have asked very well. Listen carefully, listen carefully. Think deeply upon this and keep it in mind. I will explain it for you." Listen carefully refers to the wisdom derived from hearing. Think deeply refers to the wisdom of contemplation. Keep it in mind means to never let the profound meaning slip from your awareness. This points to the wisdom of meditation and the practice itself. This phrasing appears frequently within Buddhist scriptures. Whenever a great master delivers a teaching, they often use this exhortation to listen clearly and contemplate well. Such expressions are common. Therefore, when we receive the Dharma in our daily lives, we should first listen attentively, then reflect deeply, and finally keep those teachings in mind to familiarize ourselves with them. In this way, the Buddha said, "I will tell you." Upon hearing this, jewel accumulation and the 500 elders' sons, having received these words of instruction from the Buddha, everyone listened with great joy. Of course, these were the primary figures present, but in truth, the celestial beings above were all listening as well. Then moving on to the next part, I was hoping to finish this particular section today. Let us briefly complete the next section as well. The Buddha told them the reason for this teaching. Why explain this to them at this specific time? The approach here is slightly unique. When they practice to establish a pure Buddha land, it actually depends entirely upon sentient beings. This approach differs somewhat from the 48 great vows of Amitabha Buddha or the 12 great vows of the Medicine Buddha. Those vows seem to focus on maintaining a realm and then inviting beings to come, whereas in this context, this method of explanation is very similar to what is found in tantric teachings. So what exactly is this method when a bodhisattva says, "I want to establish my own pure Buddha land," or when they are actually practicing to cultivate this pure Buddha land? The most important factor is that they must depend on sentient beings. They must observe the various types of beings and the states of their minds. From this observation, they determine the kind of land they should cultivate. We can compare this to the process of opening a yoga studio. You would consider what kind of environment people prefer in a yoga studio these days. You decide which thangkas or Buddha statues to place inside, or you might choose to place nothing at all and provide only a single mat. This creates a multifunctional space where everyone can practice as they wish. You create the room and decorate the space according to those you intend to guide. The same principle applies to the Buddha land. The nature of the Buddha field is determined entirely by the minds of sentient beings. For example, consider the many Shambhala celebrations held in the West today. Based on the profound meaning of the Kalachakra teachings, they have begun to enact roles within a kingdom of wisdom. They depict how the Kalachakra forces will arrive in this world in the future. They show the specific way in which these forces subdue demonic influences. They perform these actions with various sounds and dramatic movements. It is difficult to describe exactly how they express it. When I used to travel to America, I would often see them perform these various enactments. Some of this footage appears in the recorded videos of His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok. In truth, they are simply enacting one specific aspect of Kalachakra. They are role-playing the future subduing of demonic forces and the establishment of the kingdom of Shambhala. In the same way, the path of a bodhisattva is entirely based on this. They observe what kind of beings they are guiding and what those beings prefer. That preference dictates the kind of land they are going to establish. This perspective might differ somewhat from our earlier concepts of a pure land. When you explain this teaching, please pay close attention to this distinction. The text states that the Buddha tells bodhisattva jewel accumulation the following. The categories of sentient beings are the bodhisattva's Buddha lands. The Tibetan and Tang dynasty translations refer to it as the land of sentient beings. This means that the realm of sentient beings is, in reality, the bodhisattva's own land. That is the specific wording found in the Tibetan version, and our current text says the various categories of sentient beings. Whatever categories sentient beings may fall into, that very category constitutes the bodhisattva's Buddha land. When these bodhisattvas set out to cultivate their land, whatever beings love and whatever they prefer becomes the basis of that land. That defines their specific Buddha field. Why exactly is this the case? There are 4 primary reasons for this principle. First, bodhisattvas acquire the Buddha lands according to the sentient beings they convert. A bodhisattva establishes their land based on what will increase the benefit to beings. For example, if the bodhisattva practices the perfection of generosity, and if the sentient beings are also fond of generosity, then the Buddha land will be predominantly composed of the 7 precious substances. If the bodhisattva perfects the observance of the precepts, then there will be no thorny trees or harsh features in that land. The environment will be perfectly suited to the purity of those precepts. Since the aspirations of the beings to be guided vary, the bodhisattva receives a corresponding Buddha land to meet those needs. This is the first reason. Then there is the second reason. They acquire the Buddha lands according to the sentient beings they discipline. A bodhisattva is exceptionally skilled at taming and guiding sentient beings. For some beings, he may use the method of generosity. For others, he might use the method of ethical discipline. For those whose understanding of the Dharma is somewhat shallow, the image of the Buddha that appears to them might not seem very magnificent. However, if an individual's study and practice are especially deep, the Buddha image that appears before them will be far more magnificent. Some beings may be driven by strong desire, others by strong delusion, and others by strong anger. Therefore, in the presence of different sentient beings, various different manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas appear. The Bodhisattva's method of guiding beings involves this skill in taming them. Through this skillful means, he receives his specific Buddha land. The phrase receiving the land used here is sometimes translated as cultivating the land. In other translations, it is rendered as maintaining and holding the land. It means accepting this land as one's own or dedicating oneself to cultivating it. It refers to the process of creating such a land in the future. This is the second reason. The third reason is as follows. It is based on which Buddha land sentient beings should enter in their future lives. Depending on the realm they are destined to enter, they attain the wisdom of the Buddha, and the Bodhisattva guides them accordingly. This is the third reason. For example, a Bodhisattva considers the future lives of sentient beings. By practicing the four causes of the pure land of Sukhavati, they ensure those beings can be born in that pure land in the future. The Bodhisattva considers the approach through which they enter that realm and how they will ultimately attain the wisdom of the Buddha. Through this foresight, the land is received. There is one more reason to consider. The final reason is this. It is based on the method by which beings receive a specific land so that the Bodhisattva roots can finally arise within them. These bodhisattva roots are also known as noble roots. The non-dual wisdom itself is also referred to as a root. This includes the 5 roots we often discuss, such as mindfulness and concentration. All of these are considered roots. Furthermore, this refers to that which a bodhisattva has attained. These are the noble roots of enlightened beings that cannot be transferred elsewhere. These are the noble roots belonging to the noble ones. In these various respects, the bodhisattva maintains and upholds his land. What exactly is the underlying reason for this? It is because whenever a bodhisattva takes possession of these pure lands, it is done entirely for the sake of benefiting sentient beings. This is a very important point to understand. Why is this the case? A bodhisattva does not simply think about what they personally want to do, nor is it for their own personal enjoyment. It is not like how some people might go out and buy a luxury villa and then spend every single day playing inside it by themselves. Think of it like when we establish a Dharma center. When we establish a Dharma center, both the initial goal and the ultimate objective are solely to serve and help these sentient beings. The act of a bodhisattva establishing their future pure land is performed entirely for the sake of these beings to bring them benefit. If there were no benefit to be brought to sentient beings, the bodhisattva would never choose to take possession of or maintain a pure land. An illustrative example is provided here. Suppose someone wishes to build a magnificent palace on an open piece of land. If they construct their palace with the firm support of the earth, they can do so as they wish without encountering any obstructions. However, if they were to try to build that same palace in empty space, it would be absolutely impossible for them to succeed. The same principle applies here. A bodhisattva who takes a Buddha realm for the sake of fulfilling sentient beings is like a builder who constructs upon the solid earth. Such a task is completely achievable, but if they have not kept the welfare of sentient beings in mind, then their efforts would be like chasing flowers in the sky or attempting to build a structure upon thin ice. It is utterly impossible to realize. As it says, the vow to acquire a Buddha land is not done in empty space. If one wishes to take possession of a Buddha land, it must be grounded in sentient beings, otherwise there is no way forward. Trying to establish a realm without beings is like building in empty space. It simply cannot be done. In this text it is compared to the way we might establish a charitable organization. We must ask what exactly this organization will do. Is it for poverty relief, or is it to help university students, or perhaps it is focused on providing emergency medical care? It works just like that. The kingdom of a bodhisattva is defined by the act of benefiting beings. Regarding this aspect of benefiting beings, more will be said later. We will stop our discussion here for today. In fact, this differs somewhat from what we have studied before. I hope that all of our bodhisattvas here are still preparing to take possession of such a kingdom in the future. Do not think, in the future, I will avoid all contact with beings, or I will simply build my own private retreat room. According to today's teaching, such an approach has no foundation. This means that if you do not want to interact with anyone at all, and you just go somewhere alone to build a retreat room, that mindset is like trying to build a structure in the middle of the void. It is a vision that cannot be realized. As a bodhisattva, one should consider, based on the needs of different beings, what kind of land is required. In fact, our current situation is quite good. Many people are thinking, I want to establish a Dharma center. They think about various locations and possibilities every single day. This shows that you still possess the wholesome roots of a bodhisattva. You still have this kind of karmic affinity. This is a very positive sign. Very well, we will conclude today's teaching here.
Jirgana jirano chupai Chupun tsunen droa droa sho
Bandaran gara badna asadardam Bandaran gara badna asadardam Bandaran gara badna asadardam